Greetings, everybody. Good to see you. How is everybody tonight? Safe off the roads, hopefully, and well, not to have that much choice, but to be home. But there you go. Coffee in hand, at least. So let's see what we got here. TJ, Artra, Stephen, Ryan, Danny, Derek. What's going on, gentlemen? Good to see you guys. Let's see. So, yeah, like I said, we'll just keep this one open. We'll let everybody chime in with any questions, any kind of subjects. I got a couple from some people who aren't going to be able to make it on, but had some questions, so they sent them via email that I'll toss in here. But other than that, it's wide open. Let's do it. So, let's see. Starting out, Ryan, more about pickups, pot, and switch wiring basics. May need it to be a little more specific. If you can drop that in there, is there something you're specifically looking to do, or do I have preferences on the electronics, stuff like that? Let me know on that one. And Danny, good to see you, man. Welcome. Let's see. So while everybody's getting warmed up and stuff, I'm going to do a minor bit of gloating because I have some vindications for this week, which will be fun for you guys, I think. And yeah, my point got proven on a couple of things. So I know I talk a lot about older gear and stuff like that and the devaluing of it. And if there's any piece of bass gear, I think that's ever been uniformly pissed all over. And if you need proof of this, go over to TalkBass and do a search on the term night bass. It was a preamp rack unit made by ART that is probably the most loathed piece of bass gear ever in history. It's called noisy, terrible, all this other type of crap. And I've always said that, yeah, there's bad pieces of gear, but a lot of times it's just something's out of fashion. I'm going to recommend a video, and it's a great watch anyway. You'll learn a ton of great stuff. But recently on Produce Like a Pro, Warren did an interview with Dave Jordan about the Dirt album from Alice in Chains. Really good sounding album, pretty amazing. And since we've talked about it recently, Mike Starr that was his last album with them, I think. And that's another pursued bass tone. I get a lot of questions about Mike Starr, and I addressed him a little bit on the Eddie Jackson video. But he revealed what he used to get that iconic sound that you hear on songs like Wood and things like that. And guess what it was? An ART night bass. There's rarely any such thing as garbage, and just because a bunch of people tell you that something's fallen out of fashion doesn't mean it's useless. So kind of ironic that people who have chased down this tone over and over again, it was from probably the most hated piece of gear in history that I could remember. So definitely, that whole video is worth a watch, and the channel's worth a watch too. But check out the Dave Jordan interview about that album and where he talks about it, and they play a couple of isolated samples, and you can hear it's not a bad sound at all. So felt pretty good on that one. That was cool to see. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to be heading out to my parents' place to pick up some stuff from my childhood and things and bring them back to my new place. And I think I actually have an ART night bass out there. And if it's there, I'm going to bring it and I'm going to do a whole video on it and just dive into those presets and see what happens. So again, old gear that's fallen out of fashion, it's like anything else. It'll make it back around. People hated skinny jeans at one time too. Now look at them. So that was pretty funny. And I love the amount of people who must be eating crow right now who've chased that tone and also trash talked that bass gear. So let's see. Hey, Brooks, Eric, good to see you guys. Mr. Bungle. Yeah. I haven't heard the whole thing, but yeah, great Thrash album. Really interested in catching up on the rest of the stuff. Dave Lombardo, come on. It's, him and having Mike Patton, that's a dream team right there. So I definitely got to look into that a bit more. Scooch up here a little bit. Wiring a Fishman Fluence. Pickup wiring attempt. Wiring those is confusing. Wiring basics is a little, that's going to be pretty different from the Fishman Fluence. The Fluence are probably the biggest pain in the ass I've ever had to wire. No joke. So don't feel out of your depth there. I've been wiring and doing my own guitar stuff for, 25 years. And the thought of having to wire a Fishman just makes me want to punch a baby. There was no reason for that thing to be that complex without at least a few quick connect or, some places to put buses together. But with something like the Fishman, it's because it's all proprietary electric components. You just have to follow their guide. Their stuff isn't assigned in a way where you can go like, oh, here's the tone pot, obviously, and you route this here. They've determined their own routing, so you're kind of at their mercy, and you just have to make sure that diagram is just followed and by color code as well as possible. There's no real secret to getting it down because they've created their own kind of multi-pot circuit. And I get you, man. It's a bitch. You're correct. It is not Monday. Or is it? Scotty and Rocks, on occasion. He has been known to. Like I said, the last thing just being on the Fishman, how can I say it? It's one of those things where, although I like it, I feel like it could have been arranged a little easier, and I felt some of the options were a little excessive. That the way they went around it could have been done a little easier with some of the options. My biggest complaint about the Fishman setup was that you only get split coil to both pickups. If I were going to change the wiring, the main thing I would do was I would put push pulls on multiple pots so that I could split coil them separately. Because for me, usually having a neck and parallel and then a bridge split to get more of a PJ kind of orientation EQ wise is something I'd hone in on. And that option wasn't available with their standard package, even though you've got, this mass amount of knobs and a switch. I felt like that was a major overlook from them. So if I was going to alter it at all, I'd probably add a push-pull somewhere else to be able to do them separately from each other in the split coil setup. Let's see. So we can catching up. Thanks. Yeah, that'd be a good question, though, would that be of interest, do you think, to enough people of the basics of just wiring up pots and putting in a new set of pickups, something like that? Obviously, something like EMG, you're going to have, the quick connect thing, so it's a little simpler, but, the basics of soldering and going through and how I generally set my bases, that kind of thing. If you think there's enough interest or that'd be something you're into, hit me up here and maybe I'll mark it down for a new video for after the holidays. Separate mini toggles in for, yeah. As far as that, Danny, the mini toggles, definitely true. You can put those in, but on their basic package as it comes, like on a Schecter base or what they send to you stock, that push pull is, only on one. So you have to go and figure out the circuit yourself and put it together. And I feel like that's, knowing that there was a split coil option, I feel like having that in the stock package was kind of an overlook for them. It was, in my opinion, it should have been included native and in the supplied hardware. TJ, just want to stop in and say hello. Hey, man, good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Have a safe night at work. Take care of yourself, man. Let's see. Brooks, what was the position you found on the Apocalypse for PJ Sound? Exactly that. I was in the front pickup. I had in parallel, and the rear pickup was split. If I'm doing passives and dual humbuckers, that's usually what I'm going to go for. Is going to be the front one in parallel, so it sounds closest to a P, and then the split coil at the rear, so it kind of goes back to the PJ kind of orientation. Prance, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Mini toggles. Okay, so I also, let me drop in a couple of the questions that I got outside. Wow, this is totally random, but I got asked, what music do I listen to besides metal the most often? Check Ryan. Video do. Okay, Ryan. I'll if not regular on the channel, I'll do on either the patron or the regular, something on wiring pickups. Oh, thanks, Icky. I appreciate it, man. It's still in development. I'll talk about that here in a little bit, but yeah, I've been working on the studio. The studio here is actually much larger than what's being seen right now. There's 3 more rooms out to the outsides that I'm still working on. So it's always interesting. You think it's going to go a lot faster than it does, especially when you've got 500 other things to do. But I get it. Ton of tones on the Apocalypse, but not one you're in love with. I get that. It's definitely a very individual set. It can take a little bit of kind of dialing in because it does sound pretty different from a lot of other setups. But I round up getting some really great sounds out of it. I am a dirty synth geek. Absolutely. To answer a friend's question here, the music I listen to the most is stuff that's either darker 80s synth instrumental type of stuff or even some of the pop stuff. I listen to bands like The Fix, Thomas Dolby, things like that. And I listen to more instrumental stuff that's a bit more soundscape-ish, like what Patrick O'Hearn and Vangelis do. And also modern stuff called synthwave. That's kind of a revival of that type of thing. Thanks, TJ. Much appreciated, man. Always good to see you. Yeah, so if I can give a recommendation and you like synth stuff or some of the modern things, I would go for check out an album from a guy named Laserhawk, and the album's called Dream Rider. Composition-wise, fantastic, even if you're applying it to metal. His sense of composition and going major to minor, morphing through an orchestral piece done on synth, fantastic. So that's generally the stuff I listen to outside of metal, probably the most. So, see, James, looking forward to my connection out in the middle of nowhere, kind of hard. Hey, James, yeah, man, this will be on replay, definitely. Thanks for dropping in. I hope the connection clears up. I know I can be miserable when the internet just does not want to cooperate. Tom, in my opinion, what is the ultimate metal bass? A Euro Spectre, if that's what you got, and they're hard to beat, genuinely hard to beat. I don't think there's an ultimate metal bass though. Like you probably picked that up from some of the things. It's what does it for you and what creates your sound. I could say, you know, I've heard fantastic sounds out of things I never expected. So I think it would be more who's the player and who's the ideal player, because they're going to be able to turn a lot of great bass lines out of just whatever's in their hands. But Euro Spectre, man, I had 2 of those and they were fantastic. So congrats on that. Redline is favorite Laserhawk. I dig Redline, definitely, Nick. I still got to go Dream Rider though, but much respect to Redline. Good stuff. And thanks, Nick. Merry Christmas to you too, buddy. Picked up an SVT Pro head. Oh, it's a classic, man. It's got a very specific sound that's been used constantly. If you like stuff, especially if you're going for a rock or metal tone and you want something like a Rex Brown type of grind things like that, that SVT is going to get that almost with no adjustment. Yeah, it's one of those things that it has a very stamped in sound, but at the same time, it's pretty versatile. So I think you made a good choice, man. Congrats. Ugly Old Industrial. Yeah, I could go for some Skinny Puppy and things once in a while. Even Throbbing Gristle was had some fun stuff. So I definitely get the affection there. It's not the camera, it's the photographer. Exactly. Most wanted tone for my bass is a Ray 34 Ash stock. You know what? I've seen people who can get fantastic tones out of Stingrays. I've heard them. For some reason, I have stomach hands when I touch a Stingray. Everything I try and play turns to shit. It's just I can't do it. It just yeah. You're probably one of those people. You'll amaze me with your sounds, and I can't do them. I respect the hell out of them, but I just can't do them. Max, thank you so much. The support's greatly appreciated, man. Happy holidays to you. Ibanez Geo 6, cheapest 6-string I could find. You know what? There's no such thing as a price point dictating bass. I think we've all come to see that. One recently that blew me away, I was really surprised at, was a Court Artisan. For me, growing up all the time, Court was what you played basically if you were homeless. I mean, you just didn't want to have that name on a headstock. Fantastic bass, and apparently they make Jeff Berlin, phenomenal bassist. His signature is a Court now. So you never know, man. Companies are coming up. It's surprising. Rickster, good to see you, man. Artist or band that you listen to when nobody's around. I bear no shame. I don't have guilty pleasures because I feel guilty about nothing I listen to. Like I was just saying, I listen to a lot of synth stuff, which surprises people and things, but the only stuff I listen to when nobody's around is stuff that's at such an ear-shattering volume nobody can stand to be near it with me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I listen to, like I said, primarily the metal stuff that I'm into, and 80s synth and all its iterations going forward. But I think outside of that, pretty much anything that I like that's good, I'll go for it. I have no concerns about what somebody may think of my taste, because I've pretty much determined most people's taste is pretty shady. So let's see. Cord is making cool shit now. Steven, thank you so much, man. I definitely will, and I will cheers to you. And great efforts on the videos, man. Everybody watching, Steven Becker, this guy's been doing challenges and putting himself out there and stuff. So round of applause for him for following the advice and actually putting it into work. It's going to pay off, no doubt about it. Passive Ibanez 405. Yeah, Ibanez has done some great stuff, man. Definitely. Am I into hollow body basses? You know what? Honestly and strangely enough, I've never picked one up. I just never was in a situation, although I would be totally open to it. I'd really enjoy it. So maybe that's something for me to look at. I don't, for people that may not have heard the mention, I'm actually in the coming year going to be doing reviews, demos, and some articles for Guitar Interactive magazine now. So a lot more is going to be coming across my desk gear wise and things. So maybe I'll put that in and say, see if there's a hollow body out there that they need a review of, and I'll get one in my hands. It's a good idea. 8-string Court. Whoa, that'd be interesting. Eowyn, learned a lot over the course of multiple lockdowns. Yeah, it's if there was ever a time to soak our sorrow into bass, this is it, man. I'm glad you're getting something out of the channel. Thanks for checking it out. Piezo Pickups. I never saw the advantage. Again, maybe somebody can prove me wrong on it or something. I actually had a carbon bass a long while back, and it had piezos in the bridge, and yeah, it to me, all it seemed to do was add real sparkle in an area that I usually dial out. So it just wasn't of that much use. I think somebody playing probably much cleaner bass tone is going to get more of an advantage than I would out of it. So it just wasn't something that was that useful to me. Did I ever check out Ken Mode? I have. Good stuff. Good stuff. Much respect to it. Okay. So many guilty pleasures. Feel no guilt. Wham, go for it. George Michael could sing, man. I don't care what you think about the music. Dude had a voice. Congrats on the growth. I appreciate it. Hopefully, again, that helps bleed over and that they're helping me out. And they're also going to be Guitar Interactive Magazine. They're going to be helping me get some fairly big names for the channel and stuff to do interviews and things. So it's really cool in that they want to help kind of push the channel along with what they do there. So I'll be not just getting advantages through there, but things that'll feed into the channel here. Peter Steele used them. Piezo Pickups. Yeah, like I said, I'm not the all-seeing eye of everything, definitely, and that's why I always say be open-minded about stuff, because you never know once you didn't quite get something and somebody else did. And if a guy like Peter Steele could use them, and that enhanced his tone, I'd love to. I'm going to read up on that. That's a good tip. I'm going to see what it did for him and if I need to go and reconsider. Bad thing about being a working musician back in the old days. Had to sell equipment to buy new. Oh, late 70s Mockingbird bass. I get that, man. Yeah, the sacrifices happen, but that's a classic too. I think on the last show I showed, getting back some of my Fernandez built rich style stuff. They're fun to have around. Do you have a Slate Raven screen in the studio? I do, right there. You'll see a lot more of that as I start doing the stuff on the production series and we get into the actual recording and that kind of thing. For those of you who don't know, I've already started that, and the initial stages of it are on the Patreon channel. And it's going to be a complete series talking about starting a project, how you need to think of it, starting a band, to writing songs, to going all the way through mixing, mastering, production, release, branding, the whole deal. So it's going to be band in a box on one video series, but you'll definitely see me using that one a lot in there. It's been super useful. Really like being able to get my hands on things again, because man, after playing a while and getting mouse cramps, I'm getting like Mr. Burns hands dealing with the computer and then practicing all day. Let's see. Have you put EMGs in the Evil Twin yet? I have. It has them in there. I'm revisiting an EMG shootout I did a while back and took it down because I felt like it was deficient in a number of areas. And the pickup swap outs will all be with the SLS Evil Twin. So, yeah, it really sounds, the double piece set really sounds good in there. I'm enjoying it. Wondered if blending clean piezo out pickups with a dirty grindy distortion would be kind of cool. Very well could be. Yeah, like I said, maybe it's something I need to look into again. Tom, how many basses do I own? Let's see. Well, let me look around. I don't even know right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I own 12 basses currently. 12 basses and 6 guitars. So that's what's in there. You saw most of them on, like I said, the show where I talked about my gear and stuff. You can see a bunch of them in there. But a number of Schecters. I've got some Carvin stuff. I've got Fernandez built BC Rich style things. And I've got a Galveston 12 string and a couple oddballs and some interesting new stuff that'll be coming up this year. Danny. Does it work well? Yeah, I recommend it. It really does. And they're getting ready to release a new software for the Slate Raven that is supposed to be another level up. I use a lot of Slate stuff, actually. I use a lot of his samples for V-Drum. I use a number of his plugins. I've known Steven since he first got started up at a little shop in Laurel Canyon. Always been a really great guy, and a guy who's trying to think of really interesting ways to cut out a lot of the crap in the studio. And I definitely recommend supporting him. Let's see. Mouse mixing does suck. Digital amps for live versus the real deal. Whatever sounds good. I'm not a purist in any way, shape, or form. I know, some people have, this thing about Live Amp or Amp Sim or Simulator or something. For me, it's what does it sound like? That's all I care about. And, I've heard Amp Sims live that sounded so horrible, I wanted to slap the guy right in the face in the middle of playing. And I've heard the same thing out of tube amps. And I think it really comes down to one of those things, too, is if you're going to compare them, you have to compare them with a competent player. I think a lot of times people hear either a tube amp or a simulator in the hands of somebody who doesn't dial it in, and you're just not going to get it done well. So I've heard both sound really good. It's just, what does it come down to, and how do you get that tone? To me, there are no sacred cows. I'll do whatever I need to and use whatever tool to get it accomplished. Let's see. G&L Pickups, check them out. I actually will be receiving one soon. As I mentioned a little while back, if you haven't checked it out, I was on a podcast called The Big Bottom, and one of the guys at GNL is one of the hosts of it, and he's going to be sending me out, I believe, an L2000 or 2500, the 5-string, to check out, and I'll be demoing that on the channel, and should be interesting. I'm curious why metal guys didn't pick up on GNL that much, because I've only heard good about their pickups. Rickster, much appreciated, man. I try, do what I can. Let's see. Love Slate products. Yeah, he makes some really good stuff. Played or reviewed the Dean Metalman V bass. Be a good buy for beginner. Another brand that slipped under the radar with me is Dean. Something that I just never really caught up with them. There was nothing there that really seemed to, there was nothing unique to them over other brands I was already invested in. I've heard good about them, but usually with Dean, it tends to be I hear more about their guitars than basses. But really, if you're a beginner going out, you don't have enough of a, and this isn't an insult at all, but you don't have enough of a history to start knowing what you like or don't like yet. So my best advice would be just pick something that looks good to you and you think you would enjoy playing, and get a good setup on it. A cheap bass with a really good professional setup will do wonders, and it'll last you a long time. So fire it what you seem to gravitate to at first, and then develop as your taste develops. Looking into grabbing a contrabass. Whoa, that's a big one there. That's quite the endeavor. And there's some advice for you there from Nick on that the Z bass. SLS Evil Twin. Uh, as far as the Evil Twin, if you want to see if you would like it or not, it's going to sound identical to my SLS demos. So anything I've done with the SLS, that's the sound you're going to get out of it, so you can judge it. The only difference between the standard SLS and the Evil Twin is a gloss finish on the very face of it. Sound is going to be absolutely the same. Any advantage on rack effects over pedals, especially a preamp? Zero. Absolutely none. It's just, what do you like and what's most portable for you? I'm actually getting a piece of rack gear I used to have back in the studio just because I miss it, the SansAmp RBI. I've missed having it around, although everything I use now is pedal-based. I still miss having that rack unit around because it was just great. So, yeah, whatever works for you. Big Bottom was great. They called you the sex room. Yeah, it is kind of the New Orleans unspeakable style here. Dean has like zero quality control. Even their mid-level stuff is crap. Well, there's some advice from Nick. Might want to make sure you get your hands on that bass before you commit to purchase. Derek, let's see. Good alignments, go for new players. Ever played MTD? Funny you say that. I actually have an MTD and a Tobias en route to me in January. One of the best basses I ever played in my life was, I used to own an original Tobias Basic 6. The asymmetrical neck is one of the best innovations I've ever had in my hands. I absolutely love them. So I've got a 6-string Tobias coming because I just miss it, and an MTD 5 that is supposedly based on pretty good standards, but at a much cheaper price point that I want to have around too. Love me some Mike Tobias. Great guy, great builder. Let's see. SLS does have a great neck. Suggestion for an EQ pedal for a board setup. Honestly, I would look into the AMT pedal that I've recommended because you get way more than just EQ out of it. It's got parametric EQs. It's got graphic sets. You can literally create your own thing. You've got it. You know what? There we go. Right, y'all. But this, you'll get an IR loader. You'll get, and you can program patches and build your own EQs inside of here. Chorus, flanger, preamp, noise gate, everything you can, like you could play a gig with this pedal. It's ridiculous. But because you can create your own EQs and flash firmware and get upgrades, change things, I'd go for one of these and get way more out of just a standard EQ. That'd be my recommendation. Let's see. Wish they made a left-handed SLS neck on a body with a body ramp. Yeah. There's some interesting stuff on that I'll be getting into here shortly as far as innovations I think need to be happening and stuff of that nature. So stay tuned for that one here in a bit. I set up shortly after bought a cheap bass. Didn't like what he did. Started messing around and learned to set it up myself. There you go. Notice I said a good pro setup and not just the Guitar Center guys. Yeah, I've been amazed at some people who call themselves techs, and I could have thrown a bass down a flight of stairs and gotten the same result. About the SansAmp. Does using an amp sim ruin the natural sound of the bass? SansAmp PDI sounds amazing, but you're hearing more of the sound of that amp sim and not your bass sound. Nope. It's no different than the preamp section of an amp. It's going to do the same thing. Common misconception too, Tech 21's gear is analog. They are not digital reproductions and they're not a simulator. The RBI is an actual preamp, and it's just like the preamp section of a full head. It's just separated from the power. So it's going to be the same effect as plugging into anything else. Tech 21 Q strip. It does sound good, no doubt about it. A guy from my country worked at MTV and started his own brand, Wood Gorilla. Sick basses. Check him out. I'll definitely do that. Thanks for the recommendation. Look, I've been really on kind of a rage lately, going and checking out just random stuff. I've been trying to explore new options and new things. And yeah, that's very cool. I'm always looking to nerd out on new stuff. Okay, what do you think about Dean basses versus ESP? I'm not honestly a huge fan of ESP basses for any other reason, just in that they just don't always feel right to me. The one exception I'll say is the Frank Bello model they had a while back. That one was pretty cool. But I've had a couple ESPs in my hand, and it's not that they're bad or bad quality. It's just, the things that they seem to focus on, I don't like the feel of the necks and stuff. As far as the quality or options, I would go ESP over Dean probably. Let's see. Anytime, Nick. Hope that helps out. Yeah, any kind of good quality preamp is just going to be, like plugging into an amp. It's already part of the front section of any head. So let's see. So I'm going to leak out a short announcement on this. I figure we got just a minute here, but some of the stuff that I've been really wanting in a bass just isn't on the market right now. And there's combinations of things from different places. Ace Boy, when is my, real quick, next live stream going to be? I kind of do them at random. So if you just watch the channel, there will usually be an announcement, or especially hit up the Facebook group, and I'll always be posting in there a little bit of advanced knowledge on when they're going to come up. But because I'm getting pickier and pickier about exactly what I want, I'm talking to a couple of companies, but no matter whether the company does it or I wind up just kind of doing it privately, I'm going to start. I'm either going to go with a company and have them do a base I've designed, or I'm going to start building my own again. I used to build a lot of my own bases, and I've got some things that I think a lot of players might like, but there's a piece in one instrument, a piece in another, and I want to kind of put them all into one. So at some point in the coming year, I'll either be playing something that I built, or like I said, there's interest from a couple companies of actually marketing the design. So as far as neck ramps and things like that, definitely things that are going to be potential innovations there. Dark glass, analog, digital. I'm pretty sure Nick's correct on that one. I think they're basic analog circuitry. I know they've got to have some digital in them because they have IR loaders in some of them, things like that. But I don't know if that means the entire circuit's digital or if that's just one, that the IR loader circuit part of it is digital or not. Touchpad stuff is probably digital. Yeah. Nick coming in with the good answers. Are you aware of anyone who uses 18-inch speakers in their sound setup? I don't see very much of it live, but I know in the studio a lot of people still do. One of my favorite amp IRs actually is an 18 from a Sun Coliseum setup, a really old one that just had a massive grunt to it. Like I said, I think a lot of them are still used in the studio, but I don't think they're getting taken around as much just because, one, they're not being manufactured that much anymore, and two, they tend to be heavy as hell. So I think 12s and 10s are kind of at the top, slowly followed by 15s at this point. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to know more people are using 18s in the studio. Did I get the SB1000 from Japan? I have not. And it has got me chomping at the bit. I know it'll happen, but it's there's a specific condition and color that I want. So as soon as we come across that, I'll definitely be getting my hands on it. Another collector piece I'm hot after. US-based company selling the Pangea. No, but they have distribution here. So if you go to AMT's site, and feel free to drop my name or something. But if you go to their Euro store, you can get them. You can also go on Reverb, and they sell them right through there, and you get fairly quick shipping through their European distribution. Eddie, love Bill crazy stuff. Yeah, some of the stuff I talked with you before about a prototype neck and stuff. That's what it was kind of leading up to. So, opinion on 34 versus 35 scale for A sharp standard. It's going to be a lot more than that. I would say whatever you're going to be comfortable with. And as I talked about once before, scale length is only one thing as far as how well the B string is going to sound. And most people think like it's just you get this scale and suddenly magically it works out. The scale has to function with the rest of the craftsmanship, the quality of the bridge, how just basically everything else about it. So it really just comes down to comfort and whether you feel that's going to be needed. If I was going to do A sharp, I mean, it's really only a half step down. I know it's probably not the answer you want, but I could go either way. It would more depend on me. To me, it would depend more on the bass in total than just the scale length. Like one of the best B strings I've ever had was just that Tobias I was talking about, and that was a 34 scale. Sounded fantastic. One time I played a 36.5 scale bass that had one of the worst B strings I've ever heard. It was just like trying to hit a wet noodle against the fingerboard. So there's going to be a lot more to it. But if you're trying to if you're really concerned about a tighter bottom, uh, I'd probably err on the side of 35 if you have limited money and are trying to hedge your bet. Say the same result, increasing the scale length versus increasing the sting gauge. Sure, like it's going to be how can I say it? There's more to that one as well, because it depends on the type of string that you're using. See, for me, the reason when I go to a longer scale, it isn't because I necessarily want more tension. It's because I want to be able to use a lighter gauge string that has a brighter harmonic attack, whereas heavier strings have more fundamental. I want to be able to have be able to get more tension out of a lighter gauge string so I can get a more aggressive and articulate tone over a thicker string that's going to be a bit darker. And that also comes down to you have to be able to pick your strings right too. If you want to get on a shorter scale, better tension and a better sounding B string, go for hex core strings. If you want a looser tension and something that is going to give you a bit more ability to bend and pull and that type of thing, go for round core. But definitely, when you're looking at strings, it's not just, that's why I say scale length isn't always 100%, because the strings matter too. You could play a 36 scale with round core strings that's going to feel about the same as a 34 with a hex core. So really kind of, get up a little bit on what good high tension strings are, and that's going to play into your formula too. So, Ryan, thank you so much, man. Always appreciate the support, and it's always good to see you, man. So, waiting on a 33 bass and tuned to A with light strings, and the tension is insane. It's all about the build. 100% correct. Like I said, I've had the Tobias, which was a 34, and I had a PVTL series. Both of them 34 6 strings, and they were some of my favorites of all time. Absolutely amazing. Sounded just perfection. So it makes a big difference. And again, choosing the right strings for what you're trying to get tension-wise is a big, big deal. Danny, thank you. Much appreciated, man. And we'll be getting together here at some point and getting a couple of things knocked out on the guitars. As always, I appreciate you extending the offer. If you're in Ohio, hit up my man Danny. He's got a great shop going on, and it's worth looking into. So, yeah, as far as really when it comes down to build and a lot of these specs, that's why I say that people it's kind of like, I look at a lot of the stuff about scale length kind of being like the preset of bass building. It's everybody just goes for this one spec, like, oh, if I get this magic preset, 35 scale, 36 scale, these pickups, that thing, I'm going to have the ultimate tight beat. And it's not always the truth. It's a bass is kind of an ecosystem. It's like the way it's been set up. Does it have, rods in the neck to help keep the setup solid, or is it just a standard truss rod? Is it multiple pieces of wood so that they work against each other and aren't as susceptible to humidity and temperature changes? There's a lot that plays into it. So you can't really look at an instrument and go, oh, does it have this one factor? And then that's the magic thing that's going to guarantee me all of these other things. And really it comes down to just get your hands on it, and the truth will be revealed when you plug it up. Yeah, MTD definitely knows. Even if you don't dig their particular style or something, Mike Tobias he's just a legend in bass building, and I have a lot of respect for what he does. You have a great holiday too, Danny, man. I'll look forward to seeing you. Let's see, a couple other questions we had on here. Let me get my other list down. What is the worst bass I've ever played? Okay. Wow. The worst bass I ever played. It honestly would have to be a Washburn. I played a Washburn bass one time that felt like it was absolutely in every detail meant to be offensive. It was the neck just felt terrible. It felt like the wrong width, the wrong depth. The radius was horrible. It just didn't fit with me. Oh God, it was just horribly awkward. It was like the first date that never ends. It was a bare wood style. I forget the series Washburn, and I had to use it as a substitute and a backup on the road for like 4 days while my main bass was being repaired, and it was like a Hitchcock novel. Just I hated that bass so much I couldn't stand it. People call you crazy with a shorter scale. People will call you crazy for doing anything with common sense. Unreal. Yeah, and having shorter scale is going to be a little easier on the hands. So everything has its advantages. You have to pick what's most important to you. Happy holidays to you, good sir. Oh, Nolly uses 37.5. You know what? Nothing wrong with that either. I played a little while back. I had a fan fret in here that I was experimenting with. 37 scale can have its advantages if it's built right. Uh, I know I give Dingwall a bit of a punch here and there, but it's not really about Dingwall. I have a great respect for Sheldon and what he builds. He does some really great stuff. And some of the what I find funny is he's made some small adjustments to the instruments that I find are really cool that nobody ever talks about. It's always about, the massive scale, and it's just because it's trendy. But yeah, I mean, a 37 scale fanned out, it can make a big difference if that's what you're after and if it fits with what you're trying to achieve with tone. So I don't have, like I said, a specific prejudice against any of them. It's the instrument in total. And you never know, something I'm looking at building, maybe kind of a longer scale. We'll see how it goes. Let's see. Except bamboo ply, so dense, chimes like a giant. Interesting. So Danny's working on some new bass innovation here, apparently. I'll look forward to checking that out. That sounds really interesting. 37.5 on the B and on the G, 33.5 on the C. Yeah, that's been one of my complaints a lot about what I feel in between like 35 and 36 is that the high strings, when they start getting pulled, it's great for the low strings, but when the high strings get pulled, they tend to get tinny. So when I see extended scale basses that aren't fanned, my first impression is I'm going to probably get a better sound on the bottom, but my high end, because the strings are so taut at that scale, my high end's going to get a little weak on the top two strings. So that's always been a consideration for me. The first extended scale basses I tried that weren't fan fret, I wasn't a fan of because I felt like that's great. I got one half of what I wanted, but the other half sounds like ass, and it just didn't do it for me. So what we got here. No 50 scale. Any of the GNL stuff. Just mentioned that a little bit back. That's going to be coming in right around the first of the year. Yeah. I imagine somewhere in there. Like I said, Steve from GNL and I are in touch, and he said he was going to be sending something out. So that'd be very cool. I'm interested in that. I got a lot of respect for what GNL does. Definitely, Dan. Stingray came to life and dropped C sharp. Kind of weird. Again, another thing that's a great thing to touch on is some instruments just have a sound or a feel that cooperates better in some tunings too. I have basses that in standard sound phenomenal. If I try and drop tune them or take them below E standard, they just fall apart and sound like crap. They're like the way they speak just it just doesn't do it. I have other instruments that when I tune them up to standard sound pathetic to me, but they sound just right when I've got them, down in drop C or drop B or something. They sound great. You know, Instruments are just way more individual than I think we've started to remember. We kind of, because so much stuff is assembly line anymore, we think that they're all exactly the same. And it's like, they're still made out of trees, you know, and every tree is going to be a little different and have its own vibe. And yeah, sometimes you get a winner at a certain thing, or sometimes you have to let it tell you what it's good at. And that's the way that'll just kind of come around. Aria Pro 2 SB900. Those are great ones too, man. I'm after the 1000, but a 900 wouldn't break my heart either. What is that living in a society does to a bass player? Do I like Spectre basses? I used to be with Spectre. I played Spectre for a number of years. Some of the things I really like about a Spectre are going to be going into the new basses that I'm designing. Some things I miss about the way that they were constructed that I kind of want to bring back, and there's some elements in there. I absolutely love Spectre, and as you can tell, I did an episode a while back that said that they were the prototype metal bass from the 80s forward. They just kind of determined the standard. Your jazz, yeah. G&L videos for next year. Yeah, like I said, as soon as I get it in hand, I'll be doing something there, and I'm also going to have it on Guitar Interactive, so there'll be a lot of coverage on it. And that, like I said, it's always kind of intrigued me, because every time I hear people talk about a G&L bass, they talk about those MFD pickups and how aggressive they are. And the only guy that I can think of that in metal was really doing it was Jason Newsted had one early on, and then the guy in Helmet. And there just seems to be this complete, I don't know, just the bass that metal overlooked. Just kind of wandered out. Rickenbacker. I don't gel with them, but I mean, it's the Getty bass. You have to love and respect them. I played one for a little bit, and I liked the way the scale felt because it was easier to shred on and everything, and that was fun. But overall, it's just, I respect it, but it's not me, if that makes sense. And thank you for your time, my man with the wormwood. Happy holidays to you. Some woods have a focus resonant sweet spots. Exactly. And sometimes they just want to defy you, and sometimes it's like they were made just for you. PVT 40, another classic. Absolute classic. The only thing I didn't like about T40s was, for some reason, I think they made them out of cinder blocks. I actually like a heavy bass, but man, that thing, that's a spinal injury, some of those ones I picked up. Instruments like people. Everyone's different. Indeed. Modulus Quantum. Love them. Love them. Man, if I could find a place to get a good graphite neck bass that didn't cost like half the price of my house, absolutely love Modulus. Played two of them for a little while. Great aggressive sound. Beautiful. The split. Ryan, again, thanks for all the support and everything. Always good to see you, man. You take care of yourself. Prog metal inspiration bands that inspired you. Let's see. As far as prog metal, I tend to go to some of the older type of things, because I think, like, I really liked a lot of the modern prog metal until it started to kind of get, at least in my opinion, a bit of homogenized. That prog didn't mean exploration as much as it just meant following very specific, kind of things, certain types of jerky rhythmic ideas and things. Just a quick side note, Spectre working with Dark Glass implementing your preamps. I hadn't heard that. That is interesting. Luca, I'm going to pin your note there for just a minute, because I do have something on that. And what's up? Just join. Ben, good to meet you. Good to see you. Yeah, as far as, sorry, let me get this back up here. Give me just a second to reset this. My screen's going a little weird on the laptop here. The prog metal stuff, I like things that I felt explored things in a different way than what I hear. If I'm going to go back to prog, I'm probably going to listen to, I used to listen to a lot of Fate's Warning. Really thought they did a lot of interesting stuff. And lately, I've actually been getting back into, and if you haven't listened to them, an older band called Watchtower. You want to hear some of the craziest stuff you've ever heard in your life. One of the things that I'm really looking more forward to too is prog, at least in rock, used to mean not just odd times and things, but a mixture of different styles of music put together. And for me, I'm more looking for prog that's going to be in that, not just really math rock type of things, but a mixture of styles and things. Like I always considered Faith No More kind of prog. So that's more what I'm kind of looking for and pursuing, and I'm not hearing a lot of it lately. So if you have anything, please turn me on to it. I'd love to hear it. Chris Squire, great on a Rick. Yep. Again, fantastic sound, but it just doesn't do that. So glad this worked out. Yeah, finally, we've had live stream issues for quite a while. So glad this came too. Left-hand models. Eddie Jackson, Queensrÿche, read that he mostly played with a pick in the studio, but he seems to almost exclusively playing with fingers. Any suggestions why? Yeah, I know that exactly. Initially, he did it because he was following the engineer's advice, and he was trying to get a more aggressive sound out of his bass, cutting through with what the guitar players were doing at the time. He doesn't do that anymore, though. He has gone to exclusively finger style sound because he's figured out how to get his sound without doing the pick. But you'll run into that a lot. A lot of producers and engineers will try and take finger style players and get them to play with the pick because they, haven't figured out their setups or that kind of thing and are trying to get a more precise sound, and they don't think that the player will be able to get it without finger style. Curveball sometimes. Yeah, not everything is bass. This is true, Luca. And like I said, I got that pinned in the side here for a minute. I'll get to that one in a minute. V-Man videos and wish I could fit that. Yeah, the Status Graphite are great, man. I still search for fat bass tone, not too distorted. Don't you think modern metal bass tones are too fuzzy? It can be. I mean, it all comes down to taste. For me, I don't like fuzz and distortion as much as I like gain. I like very clear aggression and kind of a crystal thing to it. So, but if you want, a fatter tone, then it comes down to just EQ. Really, if you want a thicker tone, cut out around 2 to 3K, depending on your unit. Again, as I've lectured on EQ, it's not going to be the same for everybody. But start dialing back some of your upper mids, and it should give you a bit more of the thickness that you're looking for. Let's see. Check out the new Ocean Collecting album. I have not. Now, see, there's a name I keep meaning to look more into. I heard some stuff that was interesting, so thanks for that one. I got to pin that again. Dream Theater. Exactly. Goblin. Okay, 12-Foot Ninja. I've heard 12-Foot Ninja. Interesting. Faith No More is next level band. Insane people. This is the truth. Why'd you have to dangle me there, Steven? Okay. VT bass from Tech 21 is great fat tone. It does. It can get aggressive real quick, but if you dial back on the presence with it, you can get a much thicker, kind of richer thing. The ugliest bass you've ever seen. And why is it the Bongo? I may have to join you on that one. Yeah, it seems like they had Stevie Wonder doing the body design on that. I don't get it. Such thing as too much clank in a person's sound. No, never. Yeah, I guess, you could get out of control with it, but I look at it as more is more, to quote Yngwie Malmsteen. SVT suggestion or the warm compression suggestion? SVT, I wasn't always a big Ampeg user, but I like the Pro 4 out of the heads I've done, and warm Let's see, warm compressors. I'm going to go MXR Dynacomp. So it's worth it. Send your songs out to get mixed and mastered or learn how to do it yourself. A ton of people on Fiverr do it, but plenty of info on how to do it. I would spend the time to learn myself. But if there is somebody who you can afford who's really good, always bend to the person who's an expert at something. Like even though I can do mixing for other people, I prefer when other people do my mastering and stuff because it puts a different set of ears on it. And I think that's really valuable. Sometimes you get too far in something and because it's yours, you just can't separate yourself. So me, it's less about sound quality than it is somebody hearing it from a different angle. But I would always pursue trying to be as knowledgeable on your own thing as possible. Ricks are an acquired taste. Clank more upper mid, or is that too much treble? It is upper mids. Clank is primarily the 1 to 4K area. Everything louder than everything. Yeah. EMG 40 DC or CS? I go CS. I haven't been a DC guy. Quick note on that. The EMG DC was actually supposed to be a Music Man replacement pickup, so it's supposed to sit further away. In a bridge position where they're not supposed to go, they sound too brittle to me, and I don't dig them too much. Late to the party. Never late. You made it. Clank is like 2.8, right? Well, it's all in that area. It's the entire upper mid range, depending on what cuts through the mix. I have some work to try and make and play Dream Theater styles. I don't have a track like that, but I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but there is a guy who uploads prog tracks, backing tracks, to be able to play and solo over. If you search YouTube for Dream Theater or prog metal backing tracks, you'll probably come up with them. I don't know, Boris. Listen, I'll do that. Thank you, 87. Much appreciated. I always appreciate the support, man. And I've seen your name on the channel and everything. Thanks for being a part. EMG Active PJ pickups do I recommend? The X series. Those are the ones I use. I've said it, people have asked me before, I've said it a few times, but the pickups I use in most of my basses are the X Series P in both positions, and sometimes the PJ, but always the X Series. Merry Christmas to you. Is there any huge difference between P? You mean different bands? P, X Series Pre, and the normal EMG. When are we going to see the Metalworks? All right. Got something for both of there. There is a big difference. The X Series has a much broader frequency range and less compression. I greatly prefer them. And the Metalworks, you're going to see right around January 1. I've got them here, and if I can get over there in a minute in a break in questions, I'll show you what some of the new Metalworks P pickups look like. It's Epic Tracks. Thanks, man. 2 to 4K, bag of nails to your ear. And I like nails in the ear. Well, other people's ears. Dream Theater drum track, put a shoe in your dryer and turn it on. Oh, let's see. Thanks. Dave Ellison PJ set is awesome. I hear it's a good one. I'm supposed to check those out. Crimson Glory, yes. Yes. Definitely. I remember those guys. Heavy metal or thrash? I love them both, man. I genuinely do, but I came up on thrash. Thrash and speed metal are kind of where my heart does because I'm kind of a crackhead about tempos and things. So I'd probably go thrash. To go to Luca's thing, any general life advice? Yes, especially in things right now. If I could give any advice to people, it is investigate the philosophy of Stoicism. It was started by Marcus Aurelius, and I do a great deal of practice on it myself, but it's about being able to humble yourself, be able to understand and continually on a day-to-day basis refine yourself and challenge yourself while also being of service to the people around you and trying to create a better place. I recommend it, and it's helped things even as far as depressive moments and bad moments in my life, being able to understand how to weather those storms. So that would be my life advice. And don't ever take anything too personally, no matter what happens, because most people suck and they're not worth taking that seriously. You got to be your own North Star. Let's see. Isn't the Ellison set the 35 DC and 35 CS? I think it is. I got to look back into that one. Is there something new in EMG I'm not aware of? Possibly, and I've got it here in the studio. I'll tell you about it in a minute. Just started reading Meditations. Excellent. There are good things about the CS and DC for humbucker set. Would you say go with the X? Always go with the X. I really like them. Great advice and agreed. Danny, glad you're into it. Dave doesn't have a signature PJ set. Yeah, I think he's gone almost exclusively soap bar humbuckers now. You tried out a bass with the Bartolini BH2s. I have not. I respect, again, Bartolini. Their overall signature sound, though, just isn't me. They're soft in an area that I usually try and pull aggression out of. And I've tried some stuff from them that's really great sounding, but I can't get them to do what I need to. I'm cool, Rodney. Well, you're cool too, Luca. And I appreciate you hanging on the channel, man. He does. I have them. Ben, you need to do a video. Let me check it out so I can hear those. I have the Geezer set. I think a Rex Brown set. I have an older standard PJ, and it's amazing. The regular EMG PJ, again, that's the classic metal sound. I mean, you just can't get around. You put those in a bass, and you're 80% of the way to just having fundamental kick-ass. That's the way it goes. Frank Bello is a signature PJ set I'm aware of. Swap it out and put in a PCX. That's an interesting combo. I'd like to check that out too. I have Bartolini in all my basses. Danny. Yeah, again, I know guys that get great sounds out of it, but it's more their personality. Like I said, I respect what those guys do, and I've heard fantastic results out of them. I just don't experiment with them much because it's just not what I do. The Sim Super Quads, really interesting idea. The main reason I haven't is, one, they cost more than everything ever. And the two is I'd have to rip apart a bass to get them installed, and I don't have a bass I kind of want to sacrifice to that. But if they have one that was on loan or something like that I could check out, I'd be interested. Take on the Mesa Cabs. I really like Mesa Cabs, but especially the 12s. This 412 is my main cab back there. Whenever you hear me doing stuff that I say comes out of my Mesa cab, it is this one here. And funny story on it, that cab has actually been on a number of Aussie tours. That used to belong to Blasco and wound up coming to me, and it's got some serious mojo, but it's 412 powerhouse and probably my favorite bass cab of all time. Let's see. Mike Starr of Alice in Chains, one of the early Spectre guys I can think of with that white NS2. Yeah, but yeah, they really hit early in the 80s. If you go back and look, man, people really started picking up on the NS2, I'm going to say even as early as like 87. I started seeing them pop up. Liquid Tension Experiment, yes. Yes. Really good stuff. Blotted Science with Alex Webster. That'd be a more modern one that I'd really be into and check it out. Over here. I'm glad, man. It's always good to have you, Luca. So I like, and they never die. Yeah, you find a good home, and if it's with Bartolini, that's what's it. You know, you got to find what your comfort zone and what you want to hear, and then just stick with it. Check. Gee, website does not have the Dave Ellison PJ anymore. Gotcha. Yeah, I think he switched up to a new signature set. You know what? I'm actually going to be talking to Tommy from EMG here soon. I'm going to ask about that and see where that kind of went. Going to make an IR of that cab at some point. Not only am I, but a lot of you guys know I'm working with AMT and I'm one of their artists. I'm going to start doing all of their cab IRs coming up. I'll be doing a full line of guitar 412s, numbers of combination, but I'm also going to be doing a bass set and some signature ones, and a number of them are going to come out of that cab. So that's a lot of stuff coming up in the new year, but that's coming soon. I'm going to have probably about 12 different mics on it. So Sarzo Spectre Sig is the bass I'm aware of. They come stock in. Yeah. You really got to rip them apart. But I was surprised to see him in a Spectre. Liquid Tension is amazing. Tony Levin, I'd listen to that man that like pluck one note just repeatedly. He's amazing. Form Factor 2010 Neo. Have you tried anything they offer? I haven't. Can't say I have. Conquering Dystopia. Yep. Good work there. Definitely a good one. Anything Alex Webster touches. He's hard to top, man. And a great guy too. That's always the coolest part. Sarso went Fishman, I was imagined because of cost. Yep. Rudy seems to move a lot in gear. He doesn't seem to stay in one place very often. Especially EMG doesn't have pickups that fit Ibanez bases. Yeah, I get that. I'm one of those psychos who would probably route the actual bass if I was desperate enough. But on my carbon fretless, I'm probably going to wind up routing it to put soap bars in it. But if you don't want to tear it up, it's a tough call. Webster sounded a lot better on Modulus in the 90s, all the later Cannibal bass going. Yeah, I'd agree there. Modulus is just a fantastic sound. Hands down, one of my favorites. I'll be dipping for now. Wish you a Merry Christmas. Keep kicking ass. Same to you, my friend. Take care of yourself, Luca, and thanks for the holiday wishes. Best to you and yours, man. Are Guns N' Roses overrated? I don't know by what standard. I was never a real Guns N' Roses fan, but, you know, they seem to mean a lot to a lot of people, so I guess it's what perspective you're coming from. I always kind of saw them as just doing a lot of Aerosmith, but I don't know. That's something that you can only answer for yourself, I guess. Rex Brown, too, is one of the early Spectre guys. Yep, another guy. Any experience with Nordstrands? Only briefly. I talked with them for a short bit, and it just didn't seem to go anywhere as far as doing experiments. They seem really interesting. I'm not sure they're as aggressive as what I would want, but I haven't had them in my hands. But I hear good things, definitely. I think, Rosny, is your opinion on the reason EMGs get a sterile reputation? I've never understood it. Pretty simple. It comes down to two things, is that traditionally and up until the X series, real quick, I'm going to do a side question. If I played a Chapman stick or the like, I have not, but they seem really interesting. The reason EMGs got the sterile kind of thing is because the reason why they sound different from their originals sound different a lot from passive pickups is because they come kind of pre-EQ'd. There was a roll-off at the bottom end to make them sound tight, and then a brilliance on the top end that you couldn't always get out of a passive pickup. The other being they were really compressed. So that compression made everything stand really forward, but you couldn't quite get the same level of dynamics, so people called them sterile. It's also kind of a BS thing because when things fall out of fashion, people just need to come up with a bunch of stuff to, yell at them or, whatever it is. Everything has to be put down because it's not the current style. I've used them in guitar and bass and had people really compliment the tone when I'm not really playing aggressive, and they've been shocked that they were EMGs. So part of it is just that they're pre-processed a little bit because of the active circuit, and the other is people just are cork sniffing snobs sometimes, and they have to come up with a reason to slander something when it falls out of favor. What's in the mug? Nothing. What's always in the mug? A massive amount of espresso because I'm kind of a crackhead. The stone's bleeding through it. Ibanez Sabre. Oh, man. I haven't thought about those in ages. Man. See, that's the problem. I talk to you guys about this stuff, and then I'm like, God, is that another bass I got to buy out of sheer nostalgia? I remember those things. Richard Spawn, Modulus, Inspector Euro. Yeah. Bleeding bass tone is wild. Same for Suffocation. Pierce from within. Yep. 90s BC Rich EMG sound. You know it, man. Suffocation's bassist had a great tone on Depressed. I'm going to check that out. I heard early Suffocation, but I wasn't that big on that era. So I need to go and check that out. Appreciate the suggestion. You know, here Rex Brown is working with Gibson. Curious to see if the tone will change. I'm sure it will. Rex seems to be changing things up now since he's not doing the Pantera thing, and because he's singing, I think he's getting more of a fundamental bass tone these days, more singer-songwrite type of aspect than a standout bass kind of thing. I think that's why he went to Seymour Duncan too. I ever played Steinberger? I did. And besides feeling weird and awkward and like I was playing Harry Potter's broom, it sounded great. Really good tone. Alex Tone is all his fingers. Bunch of butchered studio footage. American P bass. Yeah, and that comes down to it too. Charvel 3B with PJ with EMGs. They get the tone. Damn straight. It's, if there is one thing, like I said, that I will always preach, that if anybody's like, I need to just get metal and get aggressive and have a solid tone, the EMG PJ, you just can't get around a good sound with it. The only person I ever heard make it sound bad was John Myung. And I don't know how the hell he did it, but he made a Spectre sound like a wet fart. And I couldn't believe it was a Spectre. I've never heard it happen any other time. Like a Black Album tone, correct. Spectre. Is Spectre Ampeg, the metal bassist, Les Paul and Marshall. I think if you're going classic, probably the Fender P is going to be metal bassist Les Paul, because that's going to be older school. I'd say the Spectre Ampeg is more the hot rodded Charvel / Marshall for basses. Pigeon on defretting a bass. No reason not to if you dig fretless. Go for it. Actually disagree on Webster's tone is in his fingers. It's oddly there, but I feel like anyone's playing a Spectre or Warwick thumb kind of sounds the same to me. I tend to disagree, like I said, John Myung. But you're going to get a similar tone because of the build, and it has a very direct tone, but I've definitely heard different versions of things coming out. Go and listen to it's on the Patreon channel, but the video I did about Eddie Jackson and Mike Starr, two radically different tones, same setup. Defretting the bass is nothing but trouble. Epoxy, if you know how to do it, I would say don't do it unless you're a competent, person or a tech that knows what they're doing. But if you have a bass that you like and you'd rather it be fretless, hey, Jocko did it. Buy a fretless replacement neck. Number of ways to go at it. I pulled the frets out of one of my basses one time. Turned out all right. But yeah, don't hack at a good bass if you haven't done or aren't experienced. The thing is too, I've built guitars for a ton of time, so I kind of knew what I was doing. Let's see what else we got here. Roll back up. Spectre Sig. All right. That's definitely an issue there, Nick. Definitely sanding. So a quick thought and a question for you guys. Let me know. I'm considering in the new year, expanding Metal Bass Monday. I'm thinking of doing a podcast, doing a longer form thing with some audio things and doing interviews and stuff like that. How do you think a podcast will go over? And does it feel like something you guys would be interested in? Let me know on that if you want to chime in. But Rex was using Warwick now. Yeah, with Seymour Duncan's. Yeah, last time, I'm not super current. I don't follow his every move. But yeah, he moved from EMG to Duncan and got a signature PJ set. All right. 2 on the podcast there. Cool. Yeah, it's a lot. Thinking about the podcast, because a lot of times there's stuff where I want to do longer form talks or things like that. And I feel like video wise, it can get a bit tedious. Or I also want to have guests in that They want to do interviews or things, but they don't necessarily want to do video, that kind of stuff. And it's another place where a lot of times I want to play audio clips for you guys to demonstrate things, but I can't get away with it on YouTube because I get strikes. So if I switch it into a podcast, I can put in all those clips and let you hear it, and the flow would go a little bit smoother. Directly replace or expand. It would work in conjunction with Metal Base Monday. I'd probably touch on some topics, and then the podcast would be the long form version of it. That's how it would go. You got a fretless neck, you can always put your fretted neck back on. That's a great point, Danny. That could be the way to go. People say you can record metal without a Warwick or Spectre. Tone is in the fingers. Any bass could be a metal bass or vice versa. Yep. They tube. Yeah. Well, it's very much, and that's why I've moved on to some other platforms. I'm going to start uploading basically to any place that hosts video. It is getting tougher here. YouTube is kind of making the move to be a more commercial entity, and they want it to be more networks that are putting their shows on there. They, from what I understand, they view their competition as Netflix. So that kind of tells you the direction that they're looking to go in. So that's why I'm thinking to expand a podcast and any other video hosting network I can start putting my stuff up on. You'll probably find me there. So if you want to give me just a second here, I'm going to grab something and show you something. DLive and BitChute are my go-to. I'm on BitChute, if you didn't know already. Give me just a second, and I'm going to show you something. Censor speech we don't like to. Exactly. So speaking of the Metalworks EMGs, these I'm just getting wired up, and it's kind of hard to get a good shot at it. Let me see here. Pretty dirty and played, but these are the first EMG Metalworks pickups. So this set is going to be debuting coming up in January, and it's the first set they're putting out. And yep, I did. And that's what I had to do, is I'm creating plastic covers to go over it so that I can switch back to soap bars. So I've done that with a few bases because I have to swap things out. But those pickups are the Alnico magnet version, and they are the Les Claypool signature. That's his pickup. And I'm going to be doing the demos for EMG. Well, a few bass players are, but I'm going to be doing one demo of some Primus songs and the other of some more kind of out there stuff, more like me, demonstrating those. And those will be on EMG's social media coming up in January. But they're very cool looking, and it's an interesting sound. I've got the what do you call it? Some comparisons in between the Alnico and the standard magnet, and depending on the bass, it's a really good option to have. It's got a little bit more grunt, a little bit less hyper extended kind of top end, so it can add some thickness to a really bright bass. And yeah, it's a really interesting set, especially the double P. What a nice ukulele. Yeah. How to play like John Myung. Relentlessly practice scales, get your 3-finger playing down, and that's pretty much it. There's actually a guy, I thought there was somebody who had a video on how to play in his style. But yeah, Myung doesn't do anything that's super out there or innovative. He's just incredibly precise at what he does. And he comes from the Billy Sheehan school too, of the 3-finger thing. If you look at my video on 3-finger plucking, it's the same method he uses, and Sheehan too. I would say that's the biggest thing, is just having a really fluid technique and mute, because he's incredibly clean. Let's see. And compose like him. That's just study the music and how their composition goes. Rodney's big gold EMGs. Yeah. Don't sass off to John Petrucci. Yeah. So is it, well, that could be an interesting thing as far as wiring. Like I said, you see that I'm using 2P pickups there, but even on my bases where you see the soap bars, usually what's in there is the soap bar version of those Ps. So that's really kind of become where I've settled in. It's honestly the most aggressive possible thing I've been able to try. PJ was my jam for a long time, and that worked out well. But a double P setup, man, there was just something about it that just, it's so crushing, so aggressive. So that's been kind of my thing there. Take a coffee shot here. Yeah, dual P or reverse P. Depends on the bass. On my longer scales, I tend to use the standard, the fender position, like that one. If the pickups are leaned forward a little bit in their placement, then I'll do the reverse P, so they always kind of center around the same general area. Opinions. Spotify discussion with Jimmy Page trying to fight with better royalties for artists. Heard Nile Rodgers. Streaming for me it's a big topic. I think that fighting for better royalties, it's a good idea and I like it, but a bigger part of the problem is the labels are still withholding money. But Spotify and streaming are, in my opinion, unsustainable, and streaming's going to collapse. A lot of people don't realize that even with the money they're taking in, Spotify at this point isn't profitable. They're still living off investment and things. They're going to have to start charging more. And when they start charging more, people are going to go back to just illegal downloading. The downloading thing really threw a monkey wrench in the industry, and no one's come up with a good monetization scheme to be able to do it. I did, and almost started a label, but didn't seem like too many people kind of wanted to listen to the concept of how you could keep all this crap from happening. But yeah, it's kind of the genie's out of the bottle. And I mean, whatever artists can get, because we're getting nothing. It's the worst profitability time for artists ever. But I think it's a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound at this point. Definitely. Love to try a double P. I recommend it. It's good stuff. Have you ever seen P pickups in threes? I want to do a double P setup for 6 strings. You mean 3 sets of them consecutively? I'm not sure I'm reading that one correctly. Modded the Dean Z for P, reverse P, and they're really different heights to get the same volume and the strings sound different tones. Should have done dual P. I get that. Yeah. And one of the big things, as far as a P pickup, to get them really consistent, I find is you have to mount them this way, getting the angle so that it matches the curvature of the neck. That to me has been, as far as really keeping the sound consistent and getting the most focused clarity across it, that made a big difference for me. My center strings really dropped off when I had them flat. OPEF. Yes and no. I respect the fact that they change a lot and they go from album to album. So for me, it's going to be more of which album, because they're so different. Some of them I go, what? And some of them are like, very cool. So they're one of those bands that it's kind of like, I'll like them for a specific period. And but much respect to them, no matter what they do. Being that adventurous is kind of rare. 2 pickups with 3 sets of magnets. Got it. I know you're kind of a Bartolini guy, but EMG does make P sets that stretch across 6-string width, if you're looking to try those out at all. I love P pickups, but these are cheap Wilkinsons, might be the problem. It could be. Like I said, I'm one of those people who I will squeeze the last bit out of a tube of toothpaste, man. It's like I'll milk whatever something is to the last before I give up on it. It's to me, it's almost like a challenge of like, can I make this finally sound good? So, you know, if you're like me, you can keep tweaking with it and see if you can pull some magic out of it. If not, swap them out. The best thing is you can get a used set of EMGPs so cheap anymore. I mean, I see them all over Craigslist and stuff or on eBay, $40, and that's nothing to upgrade. So let's see. I see James Hetfield on your computer. You do? It must be his ghost or something. Now, actually, let's see what is on my computer. That is a undead swordsman in armor. So, and then a big skull in the back of the room. So, that's what's going on there. Let's see. I don't understand how passive pickups can be expensive. In the day, it's just wire and some metal. Yeah, I think it's like anything else in that when you buy things, you're rarely paying what the machine value of a product is. You're paying for the research that went into it. It's like if I spend 3 years doing R&D to come up with something amazing, but it's just made out of plastic, it still took 3 years of my life. So, it's the innovation you pay for. But on the other side of that too, I've seen some companies that are really getting by on doing I'll say incredibly good marketing jobs for incredibly average things that aren't anywhere near as innovative as they try and make you think they are. Jazz pickups, OB3. Oh, yeah, remember you mentioned in the Aguilar. Fantastic preamp. My favorite jazz of all time. If you're going 4-string bass, I would say, well, I mean, the EMGs are classics. I'm not going to keep harping on them, but outside of EMG, the DiMarzio Model J, they are aggressive as hell. This time I turned my own pickups ended badly. You don't use bass amps anymore, correct? To me, I use bass amps. I still consider a pedal and a power amp that's still an amp. The only difference in between having a separate preamp and a power amp, it's just separating two parts of a head. So the only way I would consider myself not using a bass amp would be as if I was using like literally a sim out of a computer or something. But as far as like an actual head, no, I don't. I either use a rack mounted preamp and a power amp, or I use a foot pedal preamp and a power amp. See, amp sims or mic on the amp. I don't use amp sims live, but I do. Instead of miking my amp, what I usually do is I mic my amp myself, create an IR impulse, and I send that to the board. So it sounds like my amp is mic'd up with exactly the mic I want at exactly the right position, sounding perfect. So I hear my amp on stage and they get the perfect version of it sent direct to the board. And the BassPod Pro. Oh man, yeah, it's a classic. Again, one that, people piss all over it and then they hear tracks that I've done with them, or they find out that, like Eddie Jackson used one and stuff too. They're great stuff. Steve DiGiorgio. That's all you need to say. Incredible player. I'm reaching out actually to his management and I'm hoping to have an interview with him on the channel. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I got mad respect for Steve. Great guy. I have seen the Relentless pickup. I haven't tried it, but looks interesting. I was actually surprised at some of the specs that he used in it. Sounds like he changed things up a little bit. I'd be curious about him, definitely. Do I have a preamp pedal? I have tons of preamp pedals. I have all the preamp pedals. I've got everything Tech 21 makes. Love those guys. I've got from AMT, I've got the O bass, the A bass, the Bass Crunch. I've got the DSM Noisemaker pre. Um, I know I'm forgetting something horribly, but yeah, I use a lot of preamp pedals. Lovecraftian. Yeah, it's a whiskey brand. So, love to know how Steve gets that metal tone with fretless and flat wounds. Uh, it comes down to understanding EQ. He's using the flat wounds, but he's really using. I think he's actually using Nordstrands, which speaks well for them. Uh, but he's got a really low setup, and clank doesn't always come from the frets. Uh, what he's doing is he's got his pickups incredibly tight to the strings. And then he does somewhat what I do, whereas when most people pluck, they pluck this way. They kind of pull towards their body. I tend to play a bit more like John Entwistle from The Who used to, in that it's almost a tapping or typewriter whacking down on the string so it bounces off the fingerboard. It's almost like fingerstyle slap. It's that same type of attack. So you get this pong type of sound out of it. If you enhance your high mids in the right areas or use the right pickups, you can get a pretty aggressive fretless sound out of just having that metal popping off the fingerboard. But hopefully, if I can get that interview with him, he can detail it in depth for us, and I can steal a lot of that stuff from him because he's killer. I think he goes back and forth. I know on one project he definitely used some flats. I think in Testament he uses rounds, though. It's an expensive bass to get replaced every few years if he's using rounds. Surprisingly, if you know how to set up right and you get good fingerboard material, it's not quite as bad as you think. And it depends on the rounds. I mean, if you're using GHS boomers, you're going to cause hardly any damage because they're just not real hard windings. If they're nickel wound, you're in pretty good shape. If you're using something like Diodario XL steels, yeah, then you might do some digging. But I get the feeling Steve's probably got a few in the stable that he rotates, and the damage kind of goes out, a little bit at a time across all of them. 2 notes or B7K Ultra? Well, it seems like 2 different devices there. The 2 notes is less a distortion and more an amp IR, and the B7K has a built-in preamp. Just on that, I'd probably go 2 notes just because I don't really use dark glass as part of my tone, so I probably wouldn't want it in the circuit. Round or flat? Round. Aggressive rounds. Stainless steel wounds. All the time. Frets with the Diodario Pro Steels? Nah. If you've got decent frets, nah. It's become kind of a myth. I've been using a lot of Pro Steel stuff and everything, and yeah, I bang the hell out of mine, and they're doing just fine. Squire Fretless uses synthetic called Ebanol after a year using rounds that only has cosmetic wear. Well, there you go. There's a testimony for you. Rounds on fretless, damaging it. Depends on the bass. Definitely does. I know a number of fretless players who use rounds. Tony Franklin. He actually plays not only with rounds, but with a pick. And dude's a killer. And, he's got a signature, I think a signature Fender at this point. But he doesn't seem to have to turn his basses over a whole lot. And if anybody was going to tear the hell out of a fretless, it'd be that guy, the way he plays with rounds and a pick. The NYXL, I actually got the prototypes when they were developing those. Nice for nickels, definitely. They're bright and have a good tone to them. I'm not a nickel guy, so it didn't stick with me too long, but they're good strings. Mind out with the strings contact the frets, especially around 1st and 4th. Wow. Which bass is that, Stephen, where you're seeing that kind of damage on there? Ground wound on your fretless. Nice, Danny. I like rounds on a fretless. I do. It to me, there's just a little bit more of it just adds just a bit of grit to take kind of the ultra smoothness of the fretless out of it. Makes it feel a little less glassy to me. Beyond Creation. Ugh, yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. That guy's absolutely terrifying. What kind of near field monitors? I am using the Kali LP8s. I like those a lot. Very clear, and they're a great deal. Definitely underrated monitors. Just a crappy Squire. It may be the frets if they're using very soft metal or something like that. That could be part of it. SIT silencers. Check it out. Tap on fretless. Coincidentally, I'm actually working on some of that. I'm trying to figure out ways of trying to do something interesting with it because you don't hear it a lot. And I feel like if you're going to tap on fretless, you should take advantage of what fretless is there for. So I'm trying to incorporate some things. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully I can come up with something interesting or at least mildly original. Only like flats on a fretless. Yeah, it definitely makes the slides and things feel comfortable. But at this point, I've got fingers that are, my calluses are about the thickness of, sheet rock at this point. So I don't feel much of a difference anymore. It doesn't bother me too much. But yeah, there's definitely something to just that very smooth glide up a fretless neck. It's good stuff. Let's see, also learning fretless intonation. Yeah, valid thing. If you're going to get into fretless, and I've recommended it before, go. A lot of people want to go right to like Steve DiGiorgio or Beyond Creation, stuff like that. I really recommend practice slower songs first because they're the ones that are going to, if you're ripping at high speed, you're never going to know how bad your intonation is. Try slower players where they really sit on a note and you really have to get accurate and develop your ear. You will be a much, much better player if you spend a couple months doing that first. Any best album of the year? Human Nature by Nightwish. Best album of the year. I'm going to have to go with at least ones that I've just enjoyed so far. I've really gotten a lot out of Titans of Creation from Testament. If we're talking metal, yeah, it's just been a solid thrash album, just really good. Jaco Pastorius, not my style at all, but undeniable legend. I mean, he's groundbreaking, totally groundbreaking. Assessment of David Ellefson as the best thrash bassist. I think best, you can't really define that. There are bass players I like as much as Dave Ellefson, but as far as a skilled technician, he's everything a bass player should be. He's incredibly precise. He's got a great tone. Yeah, he's I would say an example of what a thrash bassist should be. Steve Bailey. Absolutely. I had the great fortune to work with Steve Bailey for a while. When I was at Musicians Institute, he was one of my private coaches, and I learned a lot from him. And ironically, Steve Bailey worked with Dave Ellefson for a little while, and he said that Dave Ellefson was the best pick player he'd ever seen. So there's that. Bailey, Jesus, if you haven't checked out Steve Bailey, just watch anything from that guy. He's just absolutely, he makes you just want to kick your bass across the room. Mirath. Haven't heard. That's another one I'll have to make a note of here and check out. Mirath. Learned Ramble on Fretless. Not a fretless song. Yeah, I could see that one, definitely. Silencer string are good round one, but they grind them slightly flat. Best of both worlds. Good suggestion from Danny there. Dark Roots of the Earth was all right. Not into the Native American stuff Chuck preaches, though. Yeah, I get that. If I had to disqualify bands that I listen to because of their lyrics or their stance on some issues, I would probably have like one band left to listen to. So I generally ignore it. It might be the best pick player in Thrash, but I'll take some other guys ahead of him for overall best. Yeah, I could see that. I've seen Dave play not just doing Megadeth or things that you see flat out, though. He may be better than you think. Definitely. He's an impressive player. Cliff Burton for Thrash bases. Cliff was an innovator, though. You know, he wasn't, I would say, as exacting, but as far there's a reason why on Metal Base Microscope I called him the Salvador Dali of Thrash. Uh, he expanded what people thought bass lines could sound like in their approach in metal, so we owe him for that one. Yeah, Steve Bailey did play with Alex Webster and Victor Wooten. That's just too much awesome in one room. Too good. If I were going to go with some decent fretless bass lines, and I'll toss these out, they're not metal at all. But if I were going to start, I would pick up some work from Patrick O'Hearn. He used to play bass for Frank Zappa and later did some of the ambient synth stuff that I like to listen to, but he plays a lot of fretless in it. If you want to hear some fantastic playing, anything from Pino Palladino will straighten you out in a hurry. There's a song from Pete Townsend of The Who called Give Blood, where he's playing with David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, Pete Townsend, and he has a little bass solo in the middle that's fretless. Absolutely gorgeous. I would start with a couple songs like that, and if you can play those good and accurate, your intonation is on. You're ready to go. Let's see. Disposable Heroes Fight Firefighter Attacks. Sloppy and muddy as shit. Yeah, fair. Rudy Sarzo's got to be one of the best, or at least in the conversation. I'm a mixed bag there. I respect Rudy, and I think he's done a lot of cool things for a lot of bassists and stuff. But Rudy has a very interesting thing of not being on albums, and that's what I'd really like to hear more of. You know, when he was doing Quiet Riot, a lot of the studio work was Chuck Wright. When he took over Ozzy, the studio work was Bob Daisley. When he took over Whitesnake, it was Neil Murray. So it's got, yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a mixed bag. He's a great technician and everything, but I'd like to hear more of Rudy doing Rudy. And I feel like that would be more of a fair judgment. Horrendous from PA. I have not. If that's something I should check out, post up a link so I can check it out. I hear microtonal music. I actually listen to a lot of music, at least Eastern music, that has microtonal work in it. And in some of the lead stuff I do on bass and stuff, I do try and imitate some of it, but I don't play it or get deep into it. But I've listened to a number of Japanese and Turkish pieces where I pull some microtonal kind of ideas from. It's definitely something really cool when you want to throw a curveball at your ear. Your time, Rodney. Got to go for the night. Brooks, good to see you, man. Always good to have you around and everything. I'll probably be wrapping here soon, so you can catch the last few minutes on replay. But yeah, have a good night, man. Slap the face. White City is the Townsend album. Correct. Great. Simon Phillips on drums. Yep. Great stuff. My sentiment on Rudy as well. Exactly. Why isn't there more slap? I don't know. I feel like, especially in the gent prog kind of stuff, there's a whole lot of slapping going on. Okay, not to be too much of a fanboy, one of your Metal Base Microscope episodes should be on Alex Webster. Yeah, I've been actually wanting to get Alex on for a while. I'd like to do it. What I'm trying to do with Metal Base Microscope is develop a couple of relationships so I can do the episode and then follow up with them. Like the last one I did with Jack Gibson of Exodus, I kind of want to put the episodes out and then follow up with the players. So I've slowed them down a bit, part because I was getting copyright strikes, but also because I really kind of wanted to get the player in and go into more detail after doing their episode. So I'll see how that works out. Let's see. Fair enough. I'm a bit jaded. I've worked for Rudy. Gotcha. Yeah. Again, class act guy. Really nice. I've met him a couple of times. And I mean, you don't get hired that much if you're not a solid musician and a professional. Uh, but like I said, I'd just be interested to hear his stuff on his own. I don't know that I've heard that much. Thanks for the link, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll take a listen, definitely. Polyphia, exactly. I think they're good. Uh-huh. Clay Gobber, also this particular picking. I'll have to check them out. I've heard Polyphia, but not the other. Yeah, as far as uh, the stuff that I'm really listening to later, or modern stuff, I think, and I said this if you listen to the Big Bottom podcast, the reason why I'd say over probably the past 5 years, I'm just not as in tune with a lot of the metal bands or some of the references that are coming up is it's just getting a little more, it's getting a little too polished for my taste. Um, and, that's not everybody's bag. For me, I like metal with a bit more grit in it and not quite up as pop a focus in production. So times like that, I tend to kind of go back a little bit and listen to things that I appreciate or look into the past for things maybe I missed. On my list here of people that mailed it in, they said, I got asked what albums I'm listening to right now. As far as metal goes, I've been listening a lot again to, and if you're into good composition, good playing, aggressive stuff, there's a melodic metal band called The Absence. And to me, their best album was called Riders of the Plague. Man, just phenomenal songwriting. And I really, really like that album. If you haven't checked it out, definitely look into that one. I've been listening to that a lot lately. And what else I picked up? I've been listening to early King Diamond again. I seem to do that in fall for some reason. So just kind of that mood. And another phenomenal bass player, Timmy Hansen, who we lost recently. Great bass lines out of him. Abigail, Them, Conspiracy. Can't go wrong. Over to the next stream. Time to shed some bass. You take care of yourself, man. Thanks for the links. Sal, it's been fun. Tom, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, definitely. I agree totally on the Meshuggah. So, have a good holiday, you too, man. Mike Leon from The Absence has a great Twitch. I got to check that out. Great guy. I'm trying to remember the original guitar player, Pat. Oh, it's terrible. I can't remember his name, but man, that guy just wrote so well. They hurt a little bit when they lost him. To me, the real apex for them was still Riders of the Plague. Carnival's John Stockman. Yeah, another great player. There's great players out there for me. I've been really kind of, especially with this year coming up, kind of focusing on song structure and things since I'm going to be doing some new songs. So I've been kind of focusing less on real heavy technical accomplishment and guys who can apply it to songwriting. Bob Daisley, over or underrated? Massively underrated. One of my favorite players of all time, and that'll be another one. I'm going to do a long form examination of Bob Daisley, picking apart his parts and why I think a lot of modern metal bass players are missing things that he innovated and they need to be brought back. I love Bob. I had the great pleasure of talking to Bob for 2.5 hours one night over the phone. And he was as good and as generous a rock god as you could ask him to be. So Bob will never be underrated to me, or overrated rather. Team J bass or P bass? P bass. Absolutely. Got to have that chunk. I need that. Bob Daisley, second gen Geezer Butler. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, Blizzard and Diary, they're master classes on playing. All right, guys. I think I'm going to start wrapping things up here. Jason Newstead comeback. Yeah, I'd really like to get him on the channel, actually. P all the way. But thank you to everybody who showed up. I had a really good time here. I hope you guys had fun. And we answered some questions and did some stuff. And now it seems like we actually got this shit ironed out. I could do this a little more often. But you guys be safe. Metal Base Monday, you'll stay on schedule and everything. But I appreciate you coming and hanging out. And more coming up on the channel. Like I said, I've been holding back a number of things because I wanted to make sure I could do them consistent. But it looks like they're starting to work out. And the new year is going to bring a lot of new stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. Mr. Robertson, thank you very much, man. Always appreciated. Thanks, Derek. Take care. Stephen, good night. Nick, you have a great holiday yourself. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Peace and chicken grease. You got it.